So I do want to just come out and say this before the video starts. If you aren't a huge fan of Black Ops 6 zombies, you're not going to be a fan of Black Ops 7 zombies. That's just facts. But for those who are sticking around after Black Ops 6 zombies, this is a pretty good map. I do want to say that this might seem a little bit weird because a lot of people are considering Black Ops 7 zombies to be a minor update. And they're not wrong to say this, right? It's not necessarily wrong to say that Black Ops 6 going to Black Ops 7 isn't necessarily the biggest update in the world. However, I do want to talk about Ashes of the Damned in particular because this is a very interesting map here, a very interesting upgrade that we got from Terminus in many ways, while also suffering in many other ways, which we'll talk about. So really, what's there to talk about this map that hasn't been talked about already? And is it worth going from Black Ops 6 to 7 just for this alone, just for Ashes of the Damned? Yes, but there's an asterisk. So right away, the first thing that's going to hit you is the size of the map. The map is one of the biggest we've ever had in zombies. They constantly like to put it in their marketing that this is the biggest round-based map they've ever released. And that's probably true. You do get many areas similar to the style of Transit, though not necessarily a full remake, in my personal opinion. But that aside, I do think that the map has a lot to offer in terms of size, fertility, where you want to go, where you want to train. It does offer that. So initially, it does seem very promising when you can go to all these different areas using your own transportation this time, similar in that way to Terminus, where you can use a boat to get around the map. Though I would actually argue this might be better than Terminus in that regard, because the truck not only has pack-a-punch, but you can take it wherever you want to go, whereas with the boats, you're really limited to just the island and the main Terminus island. Here, you do get the freedom to essentially drive around whatever location you'd like to go to. So, on that stance, it does succeed, and it does add a lot of replay value to an otherwise map that would mostly be considered average without this. I'm just going to be honest. Ashes of the Damned is very good at making it seem very grand in many ways, where you do have these huge overarching areas, and yeah, it is great moving around with the truck and improving the transportation system. But on the other hand, once you actually get to play the map a little while longer, and once you actually get to see what's in between each area, you'll quickly realize that while it is the biggest round-based map ever, it's not necessarily the most in-depth map ever. Now, don't get it twisted. That's not to say that the side quest or the wonder weapon or the main Easter egg itself is lacking in the depth department. It's not necessarily lacking in any of those areas. It is still a quality map in those regards. Well, maybe aside from using the truck for the boss fight, but you know, that aside, I think that really it just comes down to the fact that while it is the biggest map ever, Treyarch doesn't seem to understand that just because the map is big doesn't mean that you want to use all that area. And because of this, now you have this scenario, just like Transit, just like any map that's this extraordinarily big, any areas in between or filler areas are just not worth playing in. For instance, right, with Season 1 we're getting Cosmodrome as a survival map. Does anybody play at Cosmodrome in any map of Ashes of the Damned? And really, it's only used for the Easter egg for fan service, really. You could have taken it out and I don't think anybody would have noticed. Now, what do you think people would have noticed more? What do you think the average person going into this map would have noticed more? Cosmodrome? Or an entirely new area we've never seen before that would have surfaced for the launch of this map? You tell me what you think would have been the better choice here. Regardless, I understand that there's going to be areas that are solely there for the sake of nostalgia. That's a lot of why Farm and Diner are there, even though they really don't have any reason to be here. It's a lot for nostalgia, I get that. And really a lot of the flaws that you can find can be explained with nostalgia, but I don't think that should really be used to explain why a map is so bloated with area that doesn't need to be there. It's a flaw regardless if it's for nostalgia purposes or not. I do think that if you're going to have areas like this, you need to have them filled more with purpose. An example to what I mean, let's look at Revelations, right? Because Revelations, while not the most popular map, does do a similar concept to Ashes of the Damned in more ways than one, and I do want to talk about this in a future video comparing the two maps. Revelations has a very similar layout in that way. You have Noct, you have Der Eisendrache, you have many recycled areas from other maps thrown together essentially in a blender, and that's what the map was. However, unlike Ashes of the Damned, I do feel that the areas used in Revelations had far more purpose. Like Der Eisendrache, for example, you can get a free perk, you get some masks done. That's pretty cool, and of course it's part of the Easter egg as well. A lot of areas actually had purpose. Even if you look at Noct, which is the centerpiece of the map, on top of just being the center of where you go to teleport from map to map, you also have the ability to build the shield, and you also have the ability to find the mystery box and to go to the Pack-a-Punch machine. There are many different things located here and actually gives it purpose for you to travel to, aside from just using it as a hub to teleport from, let's say, Kino to Verrucht or to Mob of the Dead. These areas actually do serve a lot of purpose. Now, of course, that's not to say that Revelations doesn't have its share of just nostalgia-bait areas. Mob of the Dead, for the most part, you could honestly consider just as part of nostalgia. I get that, and it's definitely not free from having these areas bloated just for the sake of saying, hey, do you remember this map from our past? I totally get that, and that criticism goes to both maps. However, I feel it's stronger here because of how big this map is, because they want to say it's the most biggest round-based map ever. Yes, that's true, but at what cost? At what point do you say that this map is just so big that there are areas that you just don't care to ever go to and really just makes the map suffer as a result? To be fair, a lot of these issues can be resolved as you don't have to go to these areas, unlike other maps like Transit, where you had to go through, with the bus anyway, to go to these areas to get just to one area that you actually want to go to. A lot of this is solved by the fact that you can drive the truck whichever direction you want to go, and that is a huge positive because that means you can go where you really actually have to go. So that is a major bonus and must be commended on a map that, if it did not have this, would be significantly worse if you actually had to go to every single area, which is essentially how it would be if you only had to use the Wonder Spheres to get around the map. Thankfully, the truck does solve this, and I have to give kudos, because that does make the map feel significantly more well put together. So overall, with the map design, it is better, and it does improve in many ways from previous maps, along with, being a much better experience than Transit. Though that's really not saying a whole lot, and I definitely do think that these overly large maps get bloated way too often for me to consider them to be great or even incredible maps. They need to utilize the areas well, and while Ashes of the Damned definitely does this in many other aspects, it does stumble. And unfortunately, even though it is the biggest map ever, it's not the most in-depth map ever, and it does not utilize these areas as much as it could have. It definitely could have utilized these areas significantly more and just chose not to over favor of nostalgia. The power of nostalgia wins over again. Speaking of nostalgia, there's nothing I could talk about this map more than with its cursed mode variant, which will be coming to every single zombies map. Let's talk about how it is on Ashes first, because it did launch with this, of course, after completing the main quest. The cursed mode does improve things significantly, but what I do find funny is that the cursed mode, realistically, all it does is undo the Cold War era of mechanics. So anything from Cold War and Black Ops 6, it effectively undoes all of that. And what you're left with is the realization that Black Ops 7 doesn't add a whole lot to the formula to shake things up a bit. Really, it does actually prove that as long as you just have what people have been asking for, which is the old point system, no armor, which we still haven't gotten rid of yet, and I am losing hope that we're ever going to get rid of armor, and as long as you have all of that, people will love it, and that's fine. And I really appreciate the cursed mode for what it is. That's the mode I solely go to now when I want to play Ashes of the Damned, for good reason. It's the only mode that feels like you're rewarded for using weaker guns, even though the rarity system being in this mode is weird because it effectively undoes you trying to get more points, because if you have a higher rarity SMG, then it does. You see what I'm getting at here? It's a whole mess when you try to put two systems that are fundamentally cannot work together. They are not codependent. They cannot act together. So when you have those two systems here, it kind of looks weird on the map's part. Now, they are going to add this to survival maps as well at some point in the future. Hopefully, they have referenced this, so maybe we'll get it. Please, Treyarch, please add it to survival maps. We are going to see some form of hybrid, so hopefully we do see that at some point in the future. So that's really all I have to say regarding the cursed mode. It's a really weird idea. It is fun, and it definitely is an improvement. It's definitely a system of the game that I want to play more. But it does definitely feel like when you have that in and you take away those mechanics people don't like and you want to just play the game with that system in mind, you kind of realize there's not a huge amount of innovation here. And that's fine, right? As I said at the beginning of this video, there's an asterisk to Ashes of the Damned. While it is a solid experience and definitely a solid lineup, I just don't see the huge update from 6 to 7 like I saw even from Black Ops 1 to 2. With Transit being a launch map, even though it was piss poor, it still introduced the shield as a buildable for the first time. And this idea of buildables, that was a huge innovation. I know it wasn't the first map to technically have it, but still, the idea of a shield in zombies, that was that was a huge change all on its own. Here, it's, you take away the new mechanics, boom, people love it. And that's not wrong. But it definitely does kind of say something about modern zombies when you have to take away some certain systems and bring back old ones just to appease them. You know, that kind of tells me something about the Cold War era of mechanics, but that's an entire other video. It's kind of strange to make a video like this because there's so much to talk about. There's so much that's obviously different, yet so much that's still similar, that you can say, yeah, I can recommend Ashes of the Damned. I think it's worth playing, but there's an asterisk. There's many asterisks to the actual modes itself. You can play the regular mode if you'd like to, but then you have to deal with all the modern zombies mechanics, less points overall, SMGs are useless. Or you can play the cursed mode, but you still have rarities and you still have armor, and you still have damage scaling, so you still have all these flaws and obvious things that could be changed, but just haven't, and probably won't be for the foreseeable future. So a lot of that does kind of come down to which would you rather prefer to play with this experience. There's many changes here that you could play with or without. That's entirely up to you. I just want to say for the end of this review that it's pretty good for a minor update, but it's not going to change people's minds. If you did not like Black Ops 6, as I said, you're not going to like Black Ops 7 Zombies. It's really fundamentally a update for those core changes for those players, and it definitely does this. But I definitely do want to see a little more the next time. I definitely want to see, hopefully, it's probably not going to happen, but hopefully a complete reduction of these older systems for the cursed mode, a complete reduction of the newer systems, and a actual form of modern zombies with mechanics that people love and knew to enjoy for about 8 to 10 years now. But those are just my thoughts regarding the whole survival mode and cursed mode in Black Ops 7 Zombies. So if you enjoyed, please hit that like button and subscribe. I could always use a new addition to the Dark Ops army. And if you guys enjoyed this video as well, leave me know in the comments below what you think about this map, if it's a good map, or if you think that there are some obvious changes that could be made to make it a little bit better, or if you think it's really good or really bad. Let me know in the comments below. But thank you guys so much for watching. This is Dark Ops. I'll see you guys next time.